Since 2015, Pop Health Podcast has brought to you some of the best minds in healthcare, including leaders from government, not-for-profit, and investor-backed powerhouses, as they share successes, failures, and how our audience can move forward in today's constantly evolving healthcare world. Thank you for joining us for today's episode presented by 24 Hour Home Care. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pop Health Podcast. I'm Gavin Ward, host of Pop Health Podcast. In today's episode, I had the privilege of sitting down with Julianne Holloway, who serves as the Medicare Program Director overseeing the Dual Special Needs Program for Blue Shield of California. In today's episode, Julianne shares a little bit about her history and how she went from potentially working for the FBI to ultimately serving as an expert when it comes to the dually eligible, or those that are eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid, or what's known as Medi-Cal here in California. Starting in 2026, dual special needs plans are actually a requirement for certain health plans throughout the state. And Julianne does a great job jumping in to share how, while Blue Shield of California has done this for a long time, why there have been changes, what is so special about those who have a need for both Medicare and Medi-Cal, and just some of the nuances of the dually eligible. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Feel free to check us out on other episodes of Pop Health Podcast by visiting us on our website, pophealthpodcast.com, checking us out on YouTube, or visiting us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy today's episode. Julianne, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Thanks, Gavin. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Me too. Happy to have you. Folks, I had the chance to meet Julianne just recently at a conference in Orange County, California, where she was on a panel. And before we started the episode today, Julianne was sharing that she's been doing a lot of speaking at panels in multiple states. And not only has she finally has gotten home, but now she's off to San Diego. And I'd like you to share what you're doing here in just a second once we move on to your work there at Blue Shield. But before we do that, we like to have our guests share a little bit about themselves, preferably outside of the workplace, starting with like a fun fact, something that might surprise the audience. Can you share with us something like that?
Sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised in Southern California, and it surprises people sometimes that I'm an old soul. So I do a lot of English, British literature reading, and then I'm also big into really kind of movie cinema history.
Oh, wow.
And old movies. So yeah, I'm an old soul. I've got a record player. I am deep in the kind of decades past history. So that's a fun fact about me. And then, as we were talking before we started, anything I get to do with my dog is my favorite thing to do. So hiking, beach, traveling, anything with him is a good time.
That is great. So I know your background is blurry, but I hear there might be meetings you're in, things like that, where he makes special guest appearances. So
William Darcy may make an appearance later. Yep. Yeah.
William Darcy is his name.
Fitzwilliam. Again, going back to British literature, if you've read Pride and Prejudice, he's the main male character. So
okay. Awesome. That is great. Well, yeah, appreciate sharing that fun fact. That definitely came out of left field for me, knowing that, but that is awesome. So you mentioned born and raised in Southern California. Tell us about your journey, starting off maybe in your teenage years or in your college days, and tell us how you eventually ended up in the work that you do today there at Blue Shield of California.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty natural transition. My dad was an insurance salesman, and he kind of progressed through his career up to working in marketing and sales and growth in health plans. And so straight out of high school, I started doing some temp work, just claims examining, eligibility and enrollment, kind of all over the place in terms of healthcare operations. And then same thing through college. I was working in those types of health plans and environments. I worked at Liberty Dental Plan throughout college. So I dove right into kind of managed healthcare right out of high school. And then as I was kind of making my way through my undergrad and graduate degrees, I started to find the niche area within healthcare that I really liked, and that turned out to be dual eligibles.
Yeah.
I started on Medi-Cal, and then I worked into Medicare, and then I found the kind of dual eligible population. I also got really into health policy, and I just kind of found that area that I fell in love with, and it was all downhill from there. It was not what I planned to do. I was actually planning to go into law enforcement and
Oh,
work
wow.
for the FBI. So I had a master's in criminology, law, and society. But as I was working at health plans to pay for that in grad school. And so I just kind of fell in love with the policy side of things, the operations side of things, and then the dual eligibles. And I've always worked at mission-driven nonprofit health plans. They just kind of speak to me
Yeah.
on a personal level, and so that's really been my career. And it's also been pretty California focused. I mentioned Liberty Dental. I also worked at Cal Optima, LA Care, Care
Yeah.
First, which is now Blue Shield Promise,
Yep.
and Blue Shield.
Wow. That is a really cool story from the criminology. I mean, you're talking about your hobbies, which are like, oh, wow, interesting. Your old soul. Then you're talking, folks are listening in to hear about DSNP, but we're talking about, maybe the FBI. Like you are a very interesting individual, Julianne, and I appreciate you sharing that with me and the audience. None of us knew about this, so it's really cool. And clearly you got some personality there, which is great. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was like Blue Shield of California, but then there's also like Blue Shield Promise,
Mhm.
and you mentioned like Health First. So can you give us a little bit of background about the different names and what they all mean there?
Sure. Yeah. So Care First Health
Sure.
Plan was launched in the 1990s. Blue Shield of California was launched back in like the 1930s. And in 2015, or was it 2010? 2010 or 2015? I can't, no, it was 2010. In 2010, I believe it was that Blue Shield acquired Care First Health Plan.
Okay.
And the goal was really to bring Blue Shield into the Medicaid space. So they acquired a kind of Medicaid focused health plan
Yeah.
and wanted to vertically integrate to have Medicare, Medi-Cal, and then Blue Shield also has a large commercial line of business. And so it was to really ensure that Blue Shield of California could offer a product and health insurance for a person's entire phase of life, from being a baby to a senior in Medicare. There's a product for everybody kind of throughout that entire life continuum. And so in 2018, Care First rebranded to Blue Shield Promise,
Okay.
just to make sure that it was very clear that we were all under the same parent organization and we were all working together to deliver healthcare to Californians.
That makes sense. So what was your first step into Blue Shield Promise? Was it the current role you're in today, or were you doing something else?
I started at Care First when it was Care
Okay.
First, and I was a program manager overseeing the financial alignment demonstration or financial alignment initiative, which in California we called Medicare Medi-Cal plans or MMPs.
Okay.
We also called them CalMedi Connect, CMC. So there's not going to be a lack of acronyms in this podcast. So I'll try to make it clear up front before I
Thank
use
you.
them. But I was overseeing the CalMedi Connect program, which was kind of a innovative attempt to combine Medicare and Medi-Cal into a single program.
Yeah.
And it tried to do it from top to bottom. So they blended payment rates, they blended quality. It was a different type of quality system. It wasn't the typical kind of Medicare stars. It was a different type of enrollment structure. I mean, from top to bottom, like I said, they tried to really integrate Medicare and Medi-Cal into these financial alignment programs with the goal of reducing cost of healthcare, improving savings, but then also improving healthcare outcomes for individuals. Because the whole thought behind dual eligibles is really they're in these two separate large government programs.
Yep.
And those two government programs don't really work together. So how do we connect the dots? How do we make sure that folks aren't overutilizing on one side or not getting the care they need because they're in these two kind of clunky systems? And so the MMP was really to attempt to kind of fix that and test hypotheses on can we fix that?
Yeah. So there's, okay.
Yeah.
So is Dual Special Needs Plan, or DSNP, the folks who are listening might hear us reference,
Mhm.
is that different than MMP? And can you help us understand the differences?
Yes. So like I said, the MMP was a demonstration. So
Okay.
it was like a test case basically.
Yes.
Whereas the DSNPs, the dual special needs plans, they launched back in the first one, I think was in 2008, or 2006, somewhere around there. And it was the first kind of model to really attempt to integrate Medicare and Medi-Cal.
Yeah.
But then they launched this financial alignment initiative on the CMS side to kind of go a step further. Didn't really see the outcomes that they wanted. And so now where CMS is headed is trying to ensure that every Medicaid plan offers a DSNP plan, or that every DSNP plan that is offered has a Medicaid plan attached. So maybe it doesn't fit to be all in the same program and blending the payments and all that stuff, like I mentioned with the MMPs. But let's try this different style where if you're going to be a DSNP, you also have to be a Medicaid plan so that you can still see that full 360 view of the member. So the DSNP is just a different type of Medicare Advantage plan that specializes in serving dual eligibles.
Okay.
Whereas the MMP was really like a demonstration kind of, hey, let's test this, different type of plan out and see if it works.
Got it. Okay. So when we're talking about dual eligibles for Blue Shield in California, do we say Blue Shield Promise? They're Blue Shield Promise members? Do we say they're Blue Shield Cal? Like, how do we? Yeah.
So that is the difficult thing, is that dual eligibles can be anywhere and everywhere. And so I just call them dual eligibles. And then when we're talking about our DSNP members, we will say our Blue Shield DSNP members, because dual eligibles can have Blue Shield for Medicare, but have a different plan for Medi-Cal. They can be in Medicare fee for service, but have Blue Shield Promise for Medi-Cal. They can be in our DSNP, and then they have to have Blue Shield Promise for Medi-Cal. So it can, there's no limit of variety amongst the dual eligibles. So I just say duals or dual eligibles, but there are a lot of subcategories within that for sure.
I understand that you probably have a lot of job security, as do your colleagues across the state with DSNP, because you're simple. I'm sure you're making it as simple as possible. And I've been in the industry 20 plus years, and I think I know it, but even listening, I'm like, oh man, this is confusing.
It's a different case. Every time a member issue comes up, it's a different member issue, right? It's like, and then you've got the Medicare supplement plans and the PDP plans. It gets crazy. And so it takes a lot of research and kind of fact finding just to set the base of who is this member, what coverage do they have, and then how do we help them with whatever issue they're dealing with. Job security, but also I think it's so complex sometimes that leaders are just like, go do whatever you need to do. I can't spend the mental energy trying to figure out this puzzle.
Well, that's great if you have the autonomy and to be, to find those solutions. That's really cool. So my understanding based on what you've shared is Blue Shield has been doing the duals for a while, but I know there's something that I could probably use more education. You probably touched on it, and I can't recall all the details, but our audience is probably interested. There's something here happening in 2026 where there's like some type of mandate. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So this all goes back to California's large initiative to reform Medi-Cal and dual eligibles in California. And that was their CalAIM initiative, which I'm sure many, many plans and many folks in California are familiar with. And a part of CalAIM was actually ending that MMP demonstration and transitioning to this model where every Medi-Cal plan in California has to offer a DSNP. So that there's a good landing space for dual eligibles. Yes. And so that has been phased in California. Okay. And the first plans that launched their DSNPs were the ones that were ending their MMPs back in 2022. So the first DSNPs kind of came back onto the scene in California in 2023. Okay. And it was in 7 counties where MMPs were offered. And then since then, each county and each Medi-Cal plan in each county has been kind of going at their own pace of when to launch their DSNP, depending on when they're ready. Yep. But the mandate from DHCS was every Medi-Cal plan has to have theirs launched by 2026. And I believe all except one who had exceptions for very good reasons, is launching in 2027. So,
Okay.
but there still are Medi-Cal plans with DSNPs in those counties. So
Okay.
it's been a large initiative, especially for Medi-Cal plans that maybe haven't played in the Medicare space before, because the DSNP is a Medicare based contract and it is a Medicare based product. So it's going to be a big learning curve for a lot of, I think, Medi-Cal managed care plans that have been solely focused on Medi-Cal. There's just a lot of infrastructure that comes along with running a Medicare contract.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in my day job. I'm noticing we serve the Medi-Cal population, and some of that includes, you know, dual eligibles or DSNP members. And we notice a lot of our contracts are being updated for because of new language requirements, or they're adding a DSNP. So we're seeing that. I also noticed that like some of these authorization letters, like if a member is a Blue Shield Promise member, they might get like a letter that looks like this. If they're a dual eligible, they might get an authorization letter that looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I appreciate people like you to help me learn. Regulation on duals, that sounds very complicated. I know you talked about
Mm-hmm.
integrated care, so I'm curious, like if you can share with the audience a little bit about the regulation, integrated care, what that all means.
Yes. So in California, we are regulated by CMS, DHCS, and DMHC.
Can you let the audience know what all those stand for?
Yes. So CMS is the Center for Medicare Medicaid Services. They are the federal kind of oversight agency. DHCS is our state Medicaid agency, Department of Healthcare Services. And then DMHC also is a state agency in California called the Department of Managed Healthcare. And a lot of their focus is on kind of the financial solvency of plans, but then also they oversee and audit on, California health and safety codes, things like that. And then they're also they have a smaller part to play with Medicare oversight, and then also Medicare supplement, as I mentioned. So two state agencies, but DHCS is kind of the main state Medicaid agency, whereas DMHC is a little more broad in their oversight in California.
Makes sense. And folks, I think most folks, when they hear Medicaid, they understand in California it's called Medi-Cal.
Medi-Cal.
But yeah, just in case, I wanted to clarify because I think both of us will switch because I'll say Medicaid and I know you'll say it and then we'll say Medi-Cal. So just wanted to let everybody know. In California, yep. Medicaid is called Medi-Cal, but Blue Shield is national, right? And so Medicaid is like easier to say sometimes. I know most of your work is California that we're talking about today.
Yeah, I've been also on the national tour, so I've been code switching. But Blue Shield of California is specific to California, but we are part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, which oversees blues across the nation. So different blues in different states.
Cool. And so jumping back to you doing the conference tour and being in other states and me joking that you're finally home, but you're going somewhere. Before I forget, there's a cool event that you guys are doing tonight. So we'll tangent for a second. Tell us about that and why you're off from LA County down to San Diego.
Yeah. So Blue Shield Promise, our Medi-Cal plan, is hosting the Leading the Way awards ceremony tonight. And it's awards and recognition for providers, community-based partners, and then a couple of our Medi-Cal members who have finished their GED because Blue Shield Promise offers a program called GED Works, and it helps Medi-Cal folks get their GED. And so we're going to celebrate those members that have completed their degrees, and then some providers and community partners that have made a key difference. And it's my first time attending, but I've heard really great things from our Medi-Cal partners and leadership. So I'm super excited to go. And it's always very inspiring kind of talking to our members and our community-based providers who are being, really tapped in right now, where plans are trying to cut costs and lean on our community partners to really fill the gap that health plans can't. So it's going to be good. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Sounds like a fun event. Do you have responsibilities tonight? You just attending?
I don't. I am lucky. I don't have to speak. So I am just there to, talk to folks, celebrate people, and hear some of the cool stories that are going to come out of tonight. So I'm excited.
That's great. Low pressure for you tonight, which is good. Awesome. So let's talk about the future of duals. Well, let me take a step back. today, maybe across the state, when we look at the insured population or older, however you want to define it, like what percentage of folks are duals, or are there any stats we should be aware of when it comes to the dually eligible here in California?
Yeah, so I think we have let me double check because I always get my numbers mixed up. But I think we have just over 1.4 million duals in California.
Okay.
Let me just double check
Yeah.
that. But it is a larger population, and I think I've also heard 1 in 4 are dual eligibles.
Okay.
So it's a pretty big population, and that's statewide. It varies obviously by county. But yeah, it's a pretty sizable population, and of course it continues to grow. And that's, I think, one of the key things that health plans and regulators have understood is that this dual eligible population continues to grow, and with it, some of the challenges have continued to grow too.
Yes.
So yeah.
Cool. So when you say 1 in 4, I'm guessing, do you mean, and I know you're double checking your stats, so sorry for not trying to get you on or anything like that, but I'm guessing like 1 in 4 older adults maybe, or like 65 plus, or any idea?
1 in 4 Medi-Cal. Sorry, I was thinking 1 in 4 Medi-Cal enrollees are dual eligible. But so I think it's actually a little bit higher now, 1.7 million in California.
Okay. And so to be dually eligible, you have to be Medi-Cal eligible and Medicare eligible. And so for Medicare eligibility, that's typically 65 plus with some exceptions. Do I have that right?
Right. Medicare is mostly 65 plus, but then also serves disabled individuals, so folks who have been on disability for an extended period of time, and then has also expanded to cover certain diagnoses. So Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS, and then ESRD most recently. Medicare expanded to cover individuals who have certain ESRD stages. So that's Medicare. And then, yes, Medi-Cal is for our lower income population. And that age range is very broad. It includes, everything from babies to seniors. So
yes, it makes sense. No minimum, no max. Well, I guess minimum 0, but no max. That's great. Okay, cool. So one of the things as other plans, not you guys, since you guys have been doing this for a while, as they've opened up for the dual eligible or DSNP population, they talk about open enrollment, but for individuals who are dually eligible, is there an open enrollment period like there is for like more traditional commercial Medicare Advantage plans, or is it year round?
So it's recently, as January 1st, 2025, it's monthly. So dual eligibles have a monthly special election period that they can use. It's called an SEP, special election period. And it means that if they want to go into an integrated DSNP plan, which is a DSNP that has a Medi-Cal contract attached to it, they can switch plans monthly. If they lose Medi-Cal, they also have a election period. If they gain Medi-Cal, they have an election period. So any kind of change in eligibility also triggers an election period for these people. And then DSNP and duals also have the opportunity to participate in the regular Medicare open enrollment, which is October 15th through December 7th. So we're in it right now. And that's when most of your Medicare population switches plans. But dual eligibles can also switch plans during this time, and they can switch to any plan. So unlike the SEP, when they have to pick a specific integrated DSNP or go back to Medicare fee-for-service, during open enrollment, they can pick any, non-SNP Medicare Advantage plan and kind of bounce around at that time. So lots of opportunity for movement for duals as well if they're unhappy with their plan.
Yeah, so there's probably a lot of pressure for the health plans to have member satisfaction. I know there's like different star ratings. Probably won't get into that today. But let's give you a chance to plug your organization in. So what about Blue Shield attracts folks to your duals plan?
So I think with Blue Shield of California, we've touched on a lot of the unique things about us, right? We are a state-focused local plan, but serve kind of continuum of life for members. So
Yeah.
regardless of whether you're in Medi-Cal, falling out of Medi-Cal, or aging into Medicare, we've got a product. But for our Blue Shield DSNP specifically, Blue Shield is also extremely big on our provider partnerships and ensuring we are making things easy for our members and our providers alike. So we put a lot of focus into what our member experiences are when you interact with Blue Shield of California. So when you call customer service, are you going to get things handled quickly and easily? Is it going to be a big burden on you? Are you going to have to fill out a ton of paperwork? We really keep that at the forefront of everything that we do. And then same thing with our providers. We want our providers to focus on the healthcare that they're delivering. And we understand that, they also have to adhere to all these different regulations about risk adjustment and stars and all that. And so we want to make things as simple as possible for them as well. So we really hope that comes through. And then, on the back end, we're also working with community-based partners to figure out how to bring more benefits and more opportunities to support our members, while balancing, again, cost of healthcare. That's, I think, the biggest thing that folks in the health space are talking about right now, because we just continue to see costs increasing. And so how do we improve the lives of our members while ensuring that we remain stable enough that Blue Shield of California can be around, for decades to come?
Yeah.
So I think that's really where we're at right now. And I also think, a unique thing that Blue Shield is currently trying is I am now reporting to both Blue Shield Promise and Blue Shield of California. So I kind of have split leadership between our Medicaid organization, or Medi-Cal organization, and our Medicare. And so we're really hoping that quickly integrates these two programs and our teams across both health plans to bring a good integrated experience for our members as well.
Awesome. So do you have two bosses, or?
Sure do.
All right. Well, I'm sure you're doing just fine, and hopefully they're satisfied. I know you guys have a good reputation out there. I do know, like you mentioned, you said something about providers and making sure you also, I think something along the lines of have a good provider experience. I've been a provider for you guys in the past and present, and it's very, I think, relatively easy to communicate as a provider. And so I can vouch for that. This was not prepped audience. This is just coming out naturally. So, so I can vouch for that. And one of the things I want the audience to be aware of is, where are you guys able to serve? Mm-hmm. Right? Because I know Promise specializes in certain counties, but Blue Shield of California, the Medicare side, might be in different counties. So can you tell us, for dual eligible populations, how can they get Blue Shield Promise, or where can they get Blue Shield Promise or Blue Shield? I'm probably saying it wrong. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. It's confusing. So Blue Shield Promise offers Medi-Cal in Los Angeles and San Diego. And because of the DHCS and CMS mandates, we can only offer DSNPs where we have Medi-Cal. So Blue Shield Promise has Medi-Cal in Los Angeles and San Diego, and Blue Shield of California has our DSNP, which the formal name is Blue Shield Total Dual Plan.
Okay.
We offer that plan in Los Angeles and San Diego as well.
That makes a lot of sense. There's a lot we can talk about today. We've covered a lot. We're nearing the end of the episode. So I want to open it up to you, Julianne, and give you the opportunity to touch on anything that you were hoping we can talk about today about your work that we haven't touched on already.
Yeah, I think a lot of where I've been thinking and spending my energy is figuring out, like I said, how do we make Medicare and Medicaid, Medi-Cal work better together? The model that DHCS and CMS have kind of pushed us in is a big step towards better integration, but it's still not the best. It's still kind of two separate plans that we have to kind of fit together and make work. And so where I've been spending a lot of time is, okay, how do we, on the inside of our health plan, make that the best it can be? Are there things that we can do from an authorization perspective, from an enrollment perspective? Are there certain policy advocacy areas that we need to focus on to make everything smoother? Because we're still seeing some bumps, and a lot of it comes down to kind of differences in eligibility, authorizations, appeals and grievances, some of the not so fun things to talk about, but the things that do frustrate members a lot when things just don't work well. And so I've been spending a lot of time thinking about how do we change our operations to kind of meet this kind of, I call it a Frankenstein model that we're in, because we're not really fully integrated, but we are trying to be. Oh yeah, there's Mr. Fitzwilliam.
I see him on the left in the fuzzy area there. My left, you're right. Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about how do we, internally fix our operations or improve our operations to kind of meet this Frankenstein model. And that's not something that DHCS approves. I'm sure they probably don't like that, but it is a strange kind of marrying of DSNP and Medi-Cal. And then the other thing that I've really been focused on is our Medi-Cal plan, Blue Shield Promise, is extremely good about working with community-based organizations and community-based partners. They have such a good presence in the counties that we offer Medi-Cal in, and such strong partnerships with those CBOs. But the Medicare plans have kind of taken a back seat on the community partnership work. And so I'm also thinking about how do we get Medicare plans and DSNP plans to be more engaged with leveraging those Medi-Cal types of CBOs, because our duals experience homelessness, our duals experience serious mental illness, and a lot of our duals experience dementia and Alzheimer's, and so there's a lot of CBOs that have been in that space and working with the population and have figured out best practices for a lot longer than we've been thinking about it as a health plan. And so that's the other kind of key thing that I've really been focused on, is improving our own operations, but then also how do we play a bigger role with the community-based organizations and partners, because we need them. We need them to help identify our members or to help locate them sometimes with boots on the ground efforts. We need them to be able to provide services and support that we sometimes can't or aren't as good at offering as the CBOs, like I mentioned. So those are two things that have really been top of mind for me in this space.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad you touched on that. I know one of those folks who leads outreach to the communities in San Diego. I think I met your colleague who does some of that work at the conference in LA County. So I like that you're thinking that you already have some of these relationships through Promise that could also potentially benefit from knowing more about the DSNP and the Medicare side. So that makes a lot of sense, and it resonates with me. I want to give you kudos. You talked about operations. For those of you that are listening and are like operators or have those roles, like I said earlier, job security with its complexities of what you do. I'm not an operations person. I'm more of like the outreach style. But man, if you can lead on both of those, if you can help, with change management or the operations side, Julianne, and also help your outreach teams make those connections, kudos to you.
Well, thank you. There's also a long laundry list of policy advocacy areas that I could touch on, but we won't go into that. But there are still a lot of opportunities. And I think that is also one of the main takeaways is this was a good first step towards integration, but we've still got a long way to go to really make the kind of impact that we want to in serving our dual eligibles. So still lots of work to do with our regulators and just internally for ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I know we can talk for a lot longer, but we are at the end of today's episode, Julianne. I really appreciate you. Even after the long conference circuit you've been on, you're still being a panelist or a speaker with me and our audience today. So really appreciate it. Julianne, if folks want to stay up to speed with Blue Shield's DSNP efforts or what's the best way to kind of follow those efforts? Are you on LinkedIn or should folks follow the Blue Shield website? What would you recommend there?
I am on LinkedIn. Blue Shield of California and Blue Shield Promise also have their own LinkedIn pages, so you can follow that. And then we also have a blueshield.com website where we post news, articles, and things happening within the organization. So yeah, if you want to know more specifically about DSNP, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn and follow one of those pages.
Awesome, Julianne. Well, really appreciate you being a guest today, folks. Julianne also was very flexible with me. I was late to our appointment to record, and I asked her Yes, I was a few minutes late, and I already pushed it back 30 minutes when I asked her yesterday for permission to push it back. So you've been super awesome to join us today and share your wealth of knowledge with our audience, Julianne. Thanks so much for joining again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Pop Health Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and if you have and want to check out other episodes, visit us at pophealthpodcast.com, iTunes or Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher, and now YouTube as well. Take care.